Welcome back to the Eldritch Hearth. This is Fun Friday. In preparation for the new Candyman movie that's out in theaters, I watched all 3 of the original Candyman movies last weekend, so you don't have to. In the very first Candyman movie, Virginia Madsen stars as Helen Lyle, a graduate student doing her thesis on urban legends, and she decides to investigate the story of the Candyman. She learned in an apartment where a woman named Ruthie Mae McCoy was murdered. Interesting note, this is actually based on a real-life murder, and the circumstances of which are absolutely real. Someone did crawl through the space between walls between her medicine cabinet and the apartment next door and murdered her. She'd been hearing sounds for weeks and asking for help, and nobody listened to her, and so by the time that the police got there, it was too late. She was dead. When Helen gets to the apartment complex, she discovers that there is an entire story around Candyman, a man with a hook who, if you look in the mirror and say his name 5 times, he will appear. She goes ahead and does this. Tony Todd, who is absolutely perfect as the Candyman, appears and then calls to her, asking her to be his victim and to join him in death. As Candyman kills all the people closest to her, he makes it appear as though Helen is the one at fault for these murders, and so the police arrest her. He basically strips everything away from her, her friends, her husband, her reputation, her life, until all she has left is to accept him. There's some white savior stuff going on, but Virginia Madsen is absolutely radiant. She's beautiful as always, and the story is really fantastic. I enjoyed it very much, and Philip Glass's soundtrack is haunting. Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh, picks up sometime later in New Orleans, with Kelly Rowan as Annie Tennant as the new star. There's a few more cliches in this one, but it's still a solid movie. And shout out here to Veronica Cartwright. Veronica Cartwright, who starred in The Birds and the Twilight Zone episodes, went on to do Alien and other horror movies. I'm so glad that she's in this. She just is an icon. The movie picks up a lot of the same plot points as the first movie. Just like Helen, Annie is tormented, the people around her die, and it looks as though she is responsible. But spoilers ahead here, it turns out that Annie is actually the Candyman's descendant, and she is pregnant and he wants her child. There's a lot more lore in this movie, and I'm not sure that it always works, but the acting is great. Tony Todd, as always, is amazing, and Philip Glass, again, is wonderful in the soundtrack. There are some genuinely haunting moments because of the music that he's put behind them. And now we get to Candyman 3, Day of the Dead. This is a horror movie if it was made by the Playboy Channel. The tone of the movie is set very early by the first shot, which focuses on Donna D'Errico as Caroline McKeever in bed, half naked. And there's a lot of TNA in this movie, like completely unnecessary TNA. At one point we even get a shot of her dead mother's naked body. Why? I don't know. And this movie did the character of Annie Tarrant from the previous movie dirty. They turned her into someone who was insane and unstable and eventually committed suicide because of her fear of the Candyman. The strong Annie that we saw at the end of the second movie would not have stood for that. It has an unnecessary romance. It also seems that this movie leans into some casual racism. It made me super uncomfortable. It's just not good. Apparently, even Tony Todd has said at a convention that he did not like this movie. I feel like this scene kind of sums up me being forced to watch Candyman 3. And Donna D'Errico might have been lovely on Baywatch, but here her acting does not live up to what is needed for this role. And Philip Glass's music is missing too, so we don't even have that to set the tone. This movie had me raging at the end of it. I was so angry, and so I decided to rewrite it in my head. Alright, so sure, Annie was going crazy, she was obsessed with the Candyman, and she committed suicide. And so Caroline has this delusion that the Candyman is back and he is haunting her. We can stick with the original plotline that there's an art show showing all of the Candyman's paintings, and someone bursts in pretending to be the Candyman, and that triggers our Caroline. As the bodies pile up and the police zero in on Caroline, just as they did in the other 2 movies on Helen and Annie, this time the viewer starts to wonder, what's real? And plot twist! This time, it is all in her head, and Caroline is the actual murderer because she is so obsessed with Candyman that she thinks that he's real, and she's made him real by committing these murders herself. Like, come on. Tell me that isn't a better Candyman 3. So the first Candyman, stellar, 4 stars for sure. Candyman 2, I'd give it 3. And Candyman 3, I would give it half a star, only because Tony Todd is in it, unless of course it's my version, in which case it's 4 stars. I'll be waiting for the new Candyman to come out on video, but if you've seen it, let me know what you think. I'd really like to hear your thoughts on it. I will be back next week with another video. I don't know what it's going to be about. I'm kind of winging it at this point, but Bob the Skull and I hope you do attend.